Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Equine Episode Examination, where today we will be discussing or continuing our episode flashback segment here on and continuing our trek through season 4 with Twilight Time. So we'll be discussing that today. If this is your first time joining us for an Triple E, pretty much what we're going to do is just discuss that episode and give our thoughts on it. Everyone can kind of give their opinions on it, and we'll kind of start more general and work our way to more specific things as we go on here. Obviously, everyone in chat and the call here is going to be all discussing and having like a little roundtable discussion on our opinions on it and maybe differing opinions on the episode. We do broadcast these or record these live on Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So if you're watching a recording and would like to participate in a future discussion, especially once we get back into our Season 7 discussions in just a couple weeks here, we will you want to head over to CinemaQuestria.com and go to the stream tab there, and you'll be able to join in the discussion on Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Or if you're watching this somewhere else live right now, if you go over to the same place at CinemaQuestria.com, you'll be able to join in the chat here as well, and we'd love to hear what your opinions are of the episode. Besides that, I'm Rain Shadow, and I'm half awake, so yay. I got a few other people on the call here if they want to introduce themselves, so we can all get acquainted with each other.
It's me. I'm Splatbin. I does it.
He did it.
I'm Jay Smith.
And hey, it's Matt time, so that means it must be penis fan time.
God. Oh, I really need to just integrate the Discord overlay into this in the future, so we don't have to introduce ourselves.
We could just introduce ourselves with all the memes.
To anyone watching the video here, you're just gonna see something that says penis fan, but it is a picture, an emoji of Matt's penis fan. If you haven't been acquainted with it.
R.I.P. By the way, so we had to throw that away.
R.I.P. in pieces.
Rip in pieces.
So yeah,
sounds painful.
Oh God. So yeah, Twilight Time. What is everyone's initial opinions on this episode?
My initial opinion is that I didn't. I actually barely remember anything. I just remember it was a cute episode, and we got to see more interaction with the CMC, especially with Twilight actually getting into a bit of a teacher role, and that she was not entirely unlike her own mentor, and this was a good taste of what we would eventually expect to come from her interactions with Starlight later on.
Yeah, it's kind of I guess it's one of those kind of interesting to look back in that respect and kind of see it sort of like Twilight's first sort of teacher role into teaching sort of friendship and other stuff to other ponies.
Don't take Twilight out for a date for a meal, because she eats like a freaking horse.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to rewatch the episode either, which is bad because it's been so long since this episode aired. But between Splat Tim all weekend and just being insanely tired and not wanting to wake up early today to watch it like I was supposed to, but yeah, I do remember. I did like this episode. It was a good CMC episode, and I kind of liked what they did with it in terms of seeing, the kind of the basis of it, seeing Twilight sort of working with the CMC to help them with some of their skills and sort of seeing what those skills were, like the potion making with Apple Bloom and Sweetie Belle working on improving her magic, because at this point she really hadn't used her magic at all in the series. for it, and it was just kind of cool to see that, and it's been referenced. Those things have been referenced multiple times in future episodes in terms of that, and of course we see Sweetie Belle starting to use her magic a lot more going forward after this episode. So there was a lot of really cool things that this episode sort of set up with the CMC and sort of, you know, what they were interested in, with of course Apple Bloom being interested in potion making, and that kind of goes back to, you know, things with the Zecora and stuff. So it was really cool in that respect, and getting to see you know, Twilight work with them. You know, the whole main plot about everyone else wanting Twilight Time. I mean, who doesn't want Twilight Time for it? Was interesting too. But I think for me, what really sticks with me from this episode was sort of that actual interaction and lesson teaching that Twilight did with them.
Can I just there are a couple of things I will sort of say about this episode that aren't quite so, you know, a little bit more serious. First of all, I think it was massively overshadowed by the previous episode, which isn't a surprise in terms of the fact that Philly Vanilli, you know, it was, I would say it was relatively divisive, but I think it was for certain reasons. I think most people were impressed by like the songs and that from the episode. And it was a fairly big-ish episode, I would feel, in sort of general terms. I think this was also sort of around about the turning point time for CMC episodes to actually start being, I wouldn't necessarily say good, because I think there was good CMC episodes before this, but I would say more what's the word, more sort of fleshed out and more solidified sort of where they were going with the CMC. Because the problem with the CMC sort of really up to this sort of point is that basically, yeah, they're looking to get their cutie marks, and that's almost been the entirety of their episodes, except for maybe like one or two exceptions, or say 2 or 3 exceptions. And, you know, here I think it was sort of solidifying sort of what they were going to do for the future. I think this was sort of the very first episode that sort of paved the way to Crusaders of the Lost Mark, and sort of where they were going to take the CMC sort of going forward.
Yeah, it was kind of like after this, there wasn't really a lot of episodes that I can think of that were really revolving around them getting their cutie marks. Like, before this episode, it was, like you mentioned, like every other episode sort of revolved somewhat around that with them.
And it makes sense. It makes sense because there's only like so many ideas off of that premise, and it's like, I understand that there's a lot of stuff that they could potentially do, you know, more ideas that they could potentially go with furthering their cutie marks. But then after a while, I mean, even after with how many ideas you got, the basic premise just kind of starts to get a little stale after a while. So you kind of have to switch things up just to keep things a little fresh. And I'm glad that they decided to take things ultimately in a different direction.
Yep. I mean, and we've made that comment kind of multiple times here on Triple A before about how this show really isn't afraid to kind of change things up or progress characters or finish a character arc or something like that in order to keep things fresh and bring new ideas to the table. So it is like the CMC 7 seasons in are still going around trying to figure out what their cutie marks are and having the same kind of episode. Even if they're trying something different, they're still doing sort of the same thing in terms of trying that. So I am glad that they started to progress that here and moving on to different things with them and different kinds of stories they can tell with them.
Well, it'd be like 7 seasons in the main 6 still writing letters to Celestia at the end of every episode. that would get fucking old. Yeah. I'm sorry, it just would. But
I know it's something nostalgic that's really nostalgic to look back, but you're totally 100% right. If it was still going on 7 seasons in, it would be very grinding at the end of the episode when you get to that part. And it's just taking up time that you could devote to something else in the episode.
Yeah, but there's a couple of things that obviously, you know, this is probably one of the last real sort of main episodes where we actually see Diamond Tiara as a complete and utter bitch, and you know, that is the one minor frustration I have sort of going forward. Obviously, we see, you know, a bit of a turnaround in Crusaders of the Lost Mark, but we've not really seen a great deal of her since, and I really think that is you know, something that I do hope they end up picking up on eventually. Mm-hmm. That may well happen. You know, I hope it will happen at least. Yeah. But one other thing I do want to mention. The strange thing is this episode was written by Dave Polsky, and there's a little bit of humor in this, but it's not exactly the focus. And I'm going to say this now. I think Dave Polsky was at his best when he wrote episodes that had a lot more humor in, because I think that just worked for him more. But that's not to say that he couldn't do episodes that didn't have, like, you know, a focus on humor. But I think that's always been his strength, regardless of what he himself has said that he didn't want to be sort of stereotyped into that, and that's fine. But if you're good at something, then, you know, you should play to your strengths. And, you know, sometimes he didn't, and it worked. Sometimes he didn't, and it didn't work. But, you know, here this episode was sort of, you know, I wouldn't say it was middle of the road. I think it's sort of slightly higher than that. But it's like I say, it's overshadowed by the previous episode, and I also feel that we don't learn a great deal new necessarily about the characters. It's more of it feels more like an episode that's pushing a bit more further forward and with sort of thoughts for the future, and that's a good thing. I mean, there are a few things that I do quite like. I like the fact that we get to see a bit more of Pipsqueak, because up to this point we'd seen like next to nothing of him. Basically, we'd seen him in what was the episode where they were running the full free press? Oh God, season 2.
Ponyville Confidential.
That's the one. Thank you very much. Yeah, Ponyville Confidential. Really, that's the last. If it was sort of the last main time we saw Pip. I mean, we saw like bits of him, but this was sort of the first episode where he actually had a little bit more of a role. But yeah, you know, overall, I found the episode pretty enjoyable, and
I would say this episode does have a good amount of comedy in it as well, that Polsky sort of works in with it. You know, a lot of different visual gags and stuff, like everything that happens when Twilight's like at the Hayburger, and there's a whole kind of sequence with them trying to sort of, you know, multiple sequences where they're trying to allow the other fillies time, you know, with Twilight and stuff. So he does work in a lot of that humor into the overall plot of it, even if it has a little bit more kind of a down-to-earth, serious conclusion to it.
Also, Diamond Tiara's butler, who is awesome. we want to see that pony's backstory. I want to see how he was able to juggle like that.
He's got to. He's a butler.
They should have a butler episode between that guy and Spike. I mean, he's essentially Twilight's butler.
He's quite the butler.
They could call the episode "Butt Monkeys," because of course.
Yeah, that would kind of be stupid. It's not just the CMC continuing on a Cutie Mark quest or something. It would be continuing that aspect of the show at all. Would be I think get a little tiresome. Even in the newer CMC episodes where they're helping other ponies or whatnot with their Cutie Marks, most of them have been involved them already having Cutie Marks and sort of dealing, you know, with kind of discovering who they are in that aspect. So I mean, it's nice that they haven't just kind of replaced them and still been doing this. Let's try everything in order to do that. I think the only episode they really did that was the Gabby episode.
And they tried everything, season. And she was great at everything.
And that was different. Yeah, that was a lot different.
Technically, you could say the funny thing is with that, a lot of people could turn around and say, well, perhaps Gabby is the closest we've ever had to a Mary Sue in this show. But the thing is, though, they actually turn it on its head, which is why I love this show so much. They actually made being good at everything a problem.
Yeah. That was pretty cool.
But anyway, back to Twilight Time. It's amazing how little Twilight mentions about books in this episode. It's very disappointing. Learning, yes.
Definitely out of character.
Not so much.
The only book reference we get, she tells Scootaloo who directs Scootaloo to a book on how to fix the Unicide.
Yeah, it was like, Twilight's going to show me how to fix it. It's like, no, you're going to put it back together.
Going on to another point, keeping in mind that this episode was all the way back in season 4, and what happened at the end of season 3. This is really the first episode where we see anyone actually sort of acknowledging Twilight's status. Because we go back to Rarity Takes Manhattan. And, that was kind of a point of contention for some people in that episode, is how really no one in New York or
which makes me wonder if that really episode was written perhaps before season the change, and it was just sort of semi worked in.
I would say no, only because it's a key episode. So it was written to tie in with the season 4's complete plot. So
I guess,
and not to mention season 3 was originally the last season, so it would,
in the same way that Return of Harmony was the last episode. So.
Yeah, so any episodes written after it would have been knowing that the show, kind of knowing that Twilight was a princess. It was kind of like, I just think no one in Manhattan really gave a fuck, just because it's Manhattan, not our hashtag, not our princess.
New York.
But again, going back to my original point, it being that we see all of the Phillies really sort of wanting to get time with the princess, and acknowledging that Twilight, her status, and kind of in awe of that, which is kind of a change for the show. It's not something we'd really seen in any episodes before this.
Hey Rain, if that's what it's like for her in Manhattan, imagine what it would have been like for her in Maine, Jersey.
Isn't that just
what the fuck's a princess?
Isn't that just where all Canterlot sewage goes? Yeah, we see all the foals going up and asking for like autographs. Twilight's pretty much become like a celebrity to them in this. It was definitely a change to see, and like I said, this is really the first episode where we see stuff like that.
And then Fluttershy's in the corner going, "I did it first when I was a model. I was signing autographs before it was cool for you to do it, Twilight."
Yeah, right. It was nice seeing that little reference to the box in the background, because they hadn't really, besides the key episodes, they don't really ever sort of go back to that. So it was kind of nice to see the layout artist kind of putting in little references to that, just to bring some more continuity into the season. But yeah, at this point, we don't really see anyone else sort of doing that for Twilight. It makes sense, I guess, for the kids to do it, to kind of look up to someone who has that sort of status. And it's kind of funny, when you see like Diamond Tiara and them sort of commenting on it. It's like, yeah, I didn't really care for her much before, but now she's a princess, and shows where her priorities are.
I mean, when she thinks princess, she probably immediately thinks to her mentor Celestia and obviously her sister Luna. But herself, I don't know. It's something that they sort of I've touched on and mentioned sort of mostly in sort of seasons 4 and 5, but really since then I think it's been more a case of sort of Twilight is sort of leaned into a role that's more Celestia-esque, but not necessarily through necessarily choice, but just through narrative and story decisions that the show's made.
At the end of season 4, she sort of found her niche and sort of what she wants to do, because she was never really interested that much in leading or that whole aspect of it, and we still never see her do anything like that. She's not like the president of anything, or even queen or princess in a lot of those aspects, but she's sort of taken on under her wing to be the princess of friendship, meaning that rather than being like the princess of Equestria or the princess of Ponyville or something like that, she's sort of leading the I don't know how to word it. She's sort of leading
like a de facto leader of the main six, basically, and that's
but the point is she's more leading the dispersion sort of friendship throughout Equestria and sort of helping out with that aspect of it, versus actually having some sort of standard leadership role. And that's sort of what she's leaning into. She was never really interested in having people look up to her or having power or anything like that, but she was always kind of interested now in spreading friendship. So that's kind of like how you said she sort of leaned into that role by embracing that aspect of it. That's sort of where the season 4 finale builds up to with her gaining that title.
The truth is, she's just such a freaking nerd that where she's been sitting around reading books all day, drinking Red Bull, she finally drunk enough Red Bull to gain those freaking wings. She gained those wings through sheer nerdgasm, or nerdgasm overload. See, kids, books give you wings.
And we sort of see Twilight's, dealing with sort of trying to adjust to the new role in this episode as well, and when all the fillies are sort of coming up for autographs and wanting to come and spend time, spend that Twilight time with her. So it's kind of before that, before getting sort of the whole round table of the main six together at the end and figuring out exactly what her job entails. And it's one of the interesting things about this season, because one of the complaints as the season went on was lack of Twilight doing princess things, and you made her princess, now do something with it. And we don't really see her doing much in that role that isn't just normal for Twilight to do outside of this episode. And even this episode, the only reference we really get is the fillies sort of recognizing her princess role, and then they kind of made that into a plot point in the finale, which was kind of cool, where Twilight was just feeling that like her title amounted to nothing and she wasn't doing anything different. I kind of like how they made that a plot point of the season, and then kind of led that into the whole Princess of Friendship thing going forward, and that kind of changes in season 5.
I think it's two things. One, I'm not sure whether the show writers actually really knew what they were going to do with her in this role. I can't say that for 100%. I mean, the only way you'd know that is by asking the writers themselves. But I do feel that the way that ended up, it's almost a case of Twilight herself didn't really know what that really amounted to, and to be fair, that's kind of a Twilight kind of thing for it to sort of happen.
I think it's kind of intentional, because since that finale was written by Megan McCarthy and this whole season was story edited, I think that was kind of an intentional thing where it's sort of leading up to that. This whole season kind of leading up to that discovery at the end of the season.
Yeah, I guess so, and I think that's. I think that was, like I say, it probably was the intention, but it does make me wonder whether the actual sort of writers for that season sort of, went to Megan and say, look, do we want to put this in that mentions her about being a princess? And it obviously must have been like intentional for Megan to say, well, no, try and downplay that as much as possible, sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, they would have story meetings at the beginning of the season and stuff to discuss, all the stuff like that. So it was probably something that would have been kind of discussed and flushed out like then when they're trying to plan on, because obviously they have to plan this entire season, being that this is one of the biggest, if not the biggest season in terms of having a very coherent set season arc in it. It's something that they would have had to plan out that finale from the beginning in order to set all that up, to set the box up, to set all the keys episodes up, and sort of plan that out. So they would have been kind of planning all of that out throughout the season. I just realized that Dave Polsky also was the one who wrote Rarity Takes Manhattan as well. Huh. He had a lot of good episodes this season.
Let's say, yeah, I was gonna point that out that Dave Polsky wrote the episode, but
to be fair, Dave Polsky wrote quite a few episodes in season 4. He had quite a few credits in season 4. It's probably his most prolific season.
Yeah, I think this was the season that I thought that he was the best writer in. Yeah, because he had quite a few episodes this season, and they were all pretty good.
This was also the first season that he actually tried to do more than just be like the comedy guy. And
I thought he was the guy that wrote all the controversial episodes.
To be fair, you could say that Larson was the person that did that, or Megan was the one that did that, or Josh Haber was the one that did that.
I'm more talking about controversial topics.
Controversy out of everything.
Well, I'm more talking about controversial topics versus just the episode's quality being controversial.
Well, yeah, I guess, but
it's just the old meme from the early seasons where every controversial episode with a controversial topic is written by Polsky. It's
the only thing that has ever been said from any of the stubbins that I've actually heard myself, because obviously I was at Buck, and one of the questions was asked to him about feeling Pinky keen, saying that if they'd have known that there was going to be an adult audience, would it have been changed? And he actually said yes, they probably would have thought about changing how the episode was written, and that actually kind of annoyed me, because that made me feel that they felt like they were not writing a show just for anyone to watch with their family and just writing it for kids, and that actually kind of irked me quite a bit. But anyway, getting a bit sidetracked.
I think he was probably more referencing less than a family watching it than individual adults actively like critiquing it for stuff like that. That kind of adult, more a direct reference to bronies as an adult fan base versus just like a family watching.
But the thing is though, that I think the episode, if you're taking something out of the episode that wasn't necessarily the intention, that's your problem, not the writers. But anyway.
Okay, it depends. I mean, it could have been the writer not communicating their intention properly. I don't think that's the case in that episode. It's possible. Yes, stuff like that. Yeah, like that. Yeah. Let's see. Anything else for the writing and story in Twilight Time? I guess I like the overall story. It's just kind of weird. It kind of went like halfway through, it kind of becomes like a sort of zombie movie as the CMC are trying to get away.
Was less controversial in this episode. If you want to talk about controversies, or non-traversies, as I would prefer to call them. How it got so sad during season 4 that there was actually someone actually doing something called a Pinky Watch. It's like, really? You have one episode where you don't like some of the things she said, and now you're saying that she was written poorly for the entirety of the season. Mind you, that's this fandom in a nutshell, I suppose. So let's overreact because it gets a reaction.
Pinky has a Pinky Watch.
Pinky is a Pinky Watch.
It's the party watch.
It's an Overwatch.
Pinky is best alarm clock.
But yeah, the episode was kind of interesting pace. It went through a couple of different things where we sort of just start out with the Twilight Time itself, and then Tiara and them sort of being interested in that because they're just interested in Twilight being a princess. But then all the other kids come on. And then the whole second act is sort of like them balancing, and trying to get all the other kids some Twilight Time and whatnot, and then it sort of all falls on its face in ways, because it's really just hurting them and not really Twilight. Twilight doesn't give a crap, but it's just kind of hurting their time with them. Moving on to the character discussion and characterization of the episode. One of the things I wanted to mention is because we sort of got onto it a little bit before, it was a Diamond Tiara in the episode, because we were talking earlier about obviously getting into season 5, and of course the whole Reformation thing that happened with her in that season. It's sort of interesting, her role in this episode, because it is quite different from previous ones. The previous episode with her at the beginning of the season with Scootaloo, we sort of see her and Silver Spoon again trying to insult the CMC for being blank flanks, and the CMC just don't having it anymore. They've kind of just moved past that in that episode, and so that sort of insult doesn't really work on them anymore. And so it's interesting to sort of see her interaction with the CMC here, where she's actually sort of, being that the CMC have something that she wants, she's sort of trying to suck up to them and be nice to them in the episode, which is definitely a really kind of different dynamic between her and the CMC that we don't really see before. Of course, she's only doing it because she wants to get some of that sweet Twilight Time, but it's definitely something interesting to see, and something we hadn't really seen from her character before. Yeah, she wasn't being like a straight-on bully. She's being a little bit more kind of trying to take advantage of someone. But it was definitely kind of a different sort of characterization than we've seen with her in the past. And kind of also leading to, in terms of the show's structure, having her really just be the bully, making fun of the CMC for not having their cutie marks is sort of going by the wayside. And we sort of, like I said, saw that in the previous Scootaloo CMC episode this season.
Yeah, she evolved from being a mean bitch to a manipulative bitch.
Yep. And of course, she's just interested in getting Twilight because she's a princess now. She has power.
Well, so does Scootaloo. She has power over chickens. She's queen of the chickens.
Queen of the chickens.
Bacal.
But yes, speaking of the CMC, it was I really liked sort of their characterization, like I mentioned earlier in the introductions in the episode. It's about sort of introducing us to sort of what their interests are. We've sort of seen sort of things that they're good at in the past in the Showstoppers episode, but here we actually kind of see maybe stuff they're more interested in, with sort of like Apple Bloom being interested now in potion making. She's had some interactions with Zecora in the past, so it's kind of cool to see her taking an interest in that sort of thing in this episode. With Sweetie Belle, we see her more focused on trying to build up her magic, and we hadn't really seen her use her magic before at all. Really, the only thing we had would have been in the little kind of spark of magic that we saw in Bab's Seed, the previous season, season 3. But we really hadn't seen her do anything with her magic at all up to this point, where she's actively trying to use it and get help from Twilight, another unicorn, of how to use it as well. And of course, going forward, we see her subsequent seasons, using it more and more and more, until now she uses it like any other unicorn does. So it was cool seeing that being set up in this episode as well.
So in this episode, she was about as good as using magic as Scootaloo is at flying. How?
But it was cool seeing that sort of progression in it. And I don't really think we've seen much more in terms of what Scootaloo does. I think we've seen Apple Bloom mention kind of potion making and stuff in future episodes. Scootaloo was more kind of like trying to put together her scooter, like going the sort of mechanic route, I believe, in this. I guess we kind of see that a little bit in Derby Racers, but I haven't seen much more. I don't think we've seen much more of that since the episode.
I think one thing that I do find quite interesting, at least in the way that she's teaching the CMC, is how kind of sort of semi-hands-off Twilight is. Yeah, she's obviously helping them, but she's also making them explore and learn in their own way.
And fail.
Which is quite... Yeah, but that's part of learning.
But that's my point, yeah. Learning and letting them fail. Letting them fail, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Which, I would say that the Twilight of old would be so not narcissistic, but so
like hovercoptering.
So well, she'd be worried if things went wrong, because what would Celestia think, kind of a thing. Their failure would like be also an augmentation of her failure. So I think it's, in a sense, that shows sort of how far Twilight has sort of come, because this is the same Twilight that was scared that she was gonna like send in a friendship report late.
And I think it's one of the things about like story and structure wise. I did love the conclusion. I think the conclusion had a nice emotional hit at the end, where the CMC are obviously very apologetic and sorry, and they're sort of inadvertently using the abilities they had been working on and trying to learn and train on throughout the episode to sort of put stuff back together before they left. So we see Sweetie Belle actually using her magic to put something, and Apple Bloom using it. So they're all using their sort of the what they had been working on in the episode inadvertently there to try and help and apologize to Twilight in the end, which was a nice little emotional part of the story structure. Yep, and I think as we mentioned earlier, here, I think that's a good sort of turning point for her here, being that, of course, going into season 5 and especially season 6, as she takes on the role of Princess of Friendship and mentor to Starlight and stuff. It's important to kind of see her grow into that role as a teacher from being a student in the first 3 seasons of the show there.
You have Cheerilee in the background just sobbing away, downing a bottle of scotch. Although these are more like extracurricular things than necessarily things that you would learn in school.
Yeah, I don't see Twilight teaching them pre-calculus.
What do you mean you fillies aren't getting it? Look, I got this when I was still in a crib.
I guess, I mean, they either stopped the lessons or the show just, it doesn't seem worth it to reference it because it's been done already, and
Also, it seems
will it
to
bring
work.
anything more to the plot to do it? I think we can assume that they continued doing that for a while after it.
But now they're at a point where they're pretty much, they've grown up and they're doing basically their own things.
Yeah. I would think that, like,
They're
at this
out
point in the show, they aren't
up.
really doing that much anymore.
That's not to say that they probably won't go to Twilight to help with learning things that they're not sure about, of course.
Oh, yeah. I guess, but I mean, that's just kind of references for the sake of references, I'm not gonna.
Have you not been watching season 7? It's been a reference machine.
But I mean, most of those have been like actually working it into a story.
Twilight Time, the movie.
That'll be the whole plot of the movie. So how about Twilight and her characterization in the episode? What does everyone think about that?
Twilight is adorable even as a teacher. Also, she likes hay burgers way too much.
It was nice to see her. Obviously she has a close relationship with the CMC, being that who her friends are there in Ponyville. So it was nice seeing her take time out of her schedule to sort of be that in that teacher role intentionally, or whether it was an intentional on her part or not. Sinking into that teacher role. It was nice kind of seeing her do that and being so interested in sort of helping them out, even to the point where where they start bringing other people in. She's like, I don't really care if you want to bring other ponies to this, but really I just kind of want it to be some time with you all, and bring all those other ponies in sort of interferes with that.
That image from DM12. Wait, I've just noticed a problem with the credits. Look at the image that DM12 has posted. Notice a problem with the credits there. Where's classmate pony number 1?
Good point.
He got cut. Maybe classmate pony number 1 didn't have a line.
Classmate pony number 1, where are you? It's a better mystery than Scooby-Doo Moon Monster Madness.
Yeah, I like the end there where Diamond TR sort of tries to talk down, and belittle the CMC there, and Twilight just sort of shuts her down. Any other discussion on the characters or characterization in this?
Pipsqueak is cute. but we kind of knew that already.
We didn't see Twist in this episode, right?
Unless she was in the background, no.
Good.
She didn't have a speaking line.
Good. This episode is okay then.
I so hope they do a Twist episode in the future. It would just be me and Ray just shitting on the episode throughout, regardless of quality.
Season 8 is going to be completely focused on Twist.
Let's say if they did that, the episode would basically be the equivalent of the average Equestria Daily comment section.
Twilight's struggling to fit into the princess role there.
It's all right. All the fat is just it's spreading into her wings.
It's also cute because she won. This was G3 in G3 spot. Real princess doesn't figure face like that.
So, we kind of were on this already. Anything anyone wants to point out for the voice acting?
Yes, actually, I do have something here.
Okay, go ahead.
So, Pipsqueak was originally voiced by William Lawrenson when we first saw him all the way back in season 2. Thing is that Lawrenson went through puberty, and his voice got a little too deep to actually voice the character. So his new voice actor became Graham. I don't know how to pronounce this last name.
Verchier.
Verchier, yes.
Verchier.
I apologize. I'm just butchering that last name.
You just need.
But anyway, unlike Lawrenson, Graham actually spoke all of his lines for Pipsqueak in a Cockney accent. It's interesting, but you can definitely tell a difference between the two of them. So. That's all I've got, really, mainly for the voice acting per se myself. Sometimes we have to get voices in. That's only because of the fact that some voices change. People leave, and
the CMC. If you listen to them in season 1 and then listen to them now, there's like a massive.
There's a significant difference,
But you can. But what I always will credit all the young voice actors for the CMC. One, I mean, you got to remember that these girls were pretty young when they first were on the show, and they were high quality even then. But as things have gone on, I think yes, they sound older, but they still in respectively sound like their characters. Yeah. It's not like it's changed in any way in that regard, and
it fits the show too.
Episodes of Squeaky Belle, which is a shame because that did make her kind of adorable.
Well, like Rain said, it also does fit the show because the voice actors growing up, with their characters actually, makes sense because the characters mature over time as well as the voice actors themselves, and the voices do reflect on this. Not to mention that with the voice actors themselves basically being, they just become so associated with their roles that replacing them at this point would just be kind of dumb, really. There'd be no real point to doing that.
Especially with the way the CMC are arranged now with their arcs about them maturing, so they would easily be able to age them up as the voice actors got old.
So, what does everyone think of the of the episode's humor?
Gotta love that reference. I'm guessing it was a reference to Little Shop of Horrors at the beginning.
Yeah, a little subtle nod to that.
Sweetie Billimet. That part where she and the others and mess with Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon in the process.
I think my favorite part is the whole Hayburger scene with Twilight just stuffing her face and all the fillies sort of going in the window behind her, and Pinky keeps pointing them out like, "Oh, what's that? What's what?" And they keep ducking out of the way as soon as Twilight turns her head. So.
And then the faces Scootaloo makes while she poses for the cameras.
Posing and making duck faces as well. Her reasoning also being kind of hilarious. I can't help it. When I don't smile in a picture, I look sad.
Aww.
Who knew that chickens could look like ducks?
One particular moment with Twilight with her adorably messy eating habits is that she has her face completely covered in ketchup. She uses the Hayburger to wipe her face clean and then proceeds to eat the burger whole.
It's the correct way to eat.
I just kind of wanted to see a picture of Twilight just kind of munching on the Hayburger and, like, you know, juxtaposed with Celestia just eating an entire slice of cake.
Mm-hmm.
If that's what them two like eating lots and lots of, I wonder what Luna likes eating, or Cadence.
Banana peels.
whole banana peels.
And Cadence would be love hearts, I'm guessing.
She eats eyes.
And whole melons, or whatever she took a bite of in the beginning of that episode.
I'm guessing Flurry Heart would eat lots and lots of McFlurries then.
That's what her name means. Flurry Heart. She loves McFlurries.
Copyright McDonald's. Buy a McFlurry now.
There was also Pipsqueak just being innocently insensitive and just unknowingly outing the beans on the Cutie Mark Crusaders, basically saying, "I want to be a Cutie Mark Crusader just so I can be friends with the famous princess, and others will give me stuff and be nice to me because of it."
Yeah, I like that at the end. Oops. And it's kind of an interesting. I guess it's one things I kind of forgot to mention in the story, with the CMC sort of are doing that too, sort of taking advantage of. That kind of leads to the whole climax, I guess, the conflict there, where they kind of get into this thing where they're enjoying that a little too much and taking advantage of Twilight's sort of generosity that she has there for them. At the end, and whether they realize it or not. So yeah, Pipsy kind of calls them directly out on it there.
Oh hey, look, in that not the most recent image that DM12 was posted, but the one before that. Look who's in the background at the very beginning of that animated GIF. Oh look, it's Twist. Hi Twist.
No, fuck, worst episode. 0 out of 10. Oh, I hate this episode. Oh yeah, I forgot the Philip J. Fry pony. Completely forgot about it.
Was he frozen doing a? Was he just to think that little filly when he grows up is going to be put in a cryogenic tube? When he wakes up, he'll be in that desolated reality that we see in the end of season 6, or 5, or whatever it was. 6,
5, 6, 7, 8.
Man, season 75 went downhill.
Yeah, but thankfully it came back to season 80.
I like the 120th season when they went to space. But they didn't have any friendship lessons at all in any of the episodes. I mean, that bulk biceps singing number was just amazing.
Anything else for humor or visuals or anything that anyone wants to point out with the episode?
Sweetie Belle's overly dramatic rise to attempt. Rise! That's all I've got, though.
I wonder if the rest of the fillies acting almost like zombie-like was a reference to in Equestria Girls when they actually were zombie, basically essentially zombified. Became a zombie teenage army.
Yeah, that whole that episode got a little wacky there. They're them jumping over the fence there, trying to escape from the zombie ponies at the. I think wasn't one of them like drooling too.
Yeah,
I think one of them was drooling.
It was the fry pony who was drooling.
Went a little over the top there.
Man, I'm looking forward to when they put a Leela pony in. Oh damn, that would be kind of obvious with a one-eyed pony.
She was born in the Canterlot runoff.
She was born in Maine, Jersey. Hey, if they do a bender pony, they need to put a piece of cheese as his cutie mark. Or a cigar. Or a hooker. All of them would be suitable. Well, apart from the hooker.
Let's see. Moving on to the background music, just to point a few things out here. We start right at the beginning here with this little lovely number for the Twilight Time at the beginning. Magical score. There's that coughing flower. The next one we get starts off a little bit of the CMC score that we've heard before in this series, and then it kind of drifts into Diamond Tiara's much more hostile and kind of pretentious sounding score as she shows up in the scene. see. This next one here, we start off with let's see. We start off with Diamond Tiara's theme here, and then kind of this is when the CMC are kind of scheming their plan here to sort of get back at her. So we have a little bit of a scheming score after that. And here's the scheming score. From there, we get to the scene where the CMC bring Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon to their next edition of Twilight Time. So here we have a little change up in Diamond Tiara's theme that we heard at the beginning of that track here. It still has the very kind of forceful staccato nature as before, but the tone here has changed, and it sounds more like some sort of insincere graciousness to sort of match what Diamond Tiara is doing here. From there, let's see, this next track here encompasses a couple of different CMC themes that we've heard earlier in the episode. There's that guitar theme. Sort of one of the CMC's main motifs from this era of the show. We kind of change up in the next track where we get a little more intense with the zombie ponies, unruly mob coming in. So we start off with another classic Chimera Crusaders theme from earlier seasons, but then it turns very intense once we get to the zombie scenes. This is a really old theme here. We don't hear that motif anymore after this episode, I don't think. You can hear the score here matching the crowd saying Twilight Time. The same rhythm there. So now we get to the next couple of tracks later, One Last Try, and this is when the CMC are kind of trying to save Twilight Time by showing everyone what they what they were supposed to be practicing, but obviously haven't been practicing. So it, of course, ends very, very badly for them. This track you might recognize from Season 3's Too Many Pinkie Pies at the end when they were all watching paint dry. It's a little bit, this version is slightly different than that, but it's the same theme. So then we finally get to kind of the conclusion of the episode after that climax here, the falling action. And this is very kind of the emotional part of the episode where obviously the CMC sort of having called out, they've failed at practicing and at stuff. Twilight's not really happy with them. And so the score really gets really emotional here as well. This track here plays as the CMC admit their faults from the episode, and when they're at the same time unintentionally showing Twilight all the things that they had learned from their time with her. And it has this really great ending to it with a lot of French horn in it, which really kind of builds this really emotional part at the end as they're doing sort of like Sweetie Belle's using her magic and all of them are sort of using everything that they've been learning in Twilight Time to sort of help Twilight there. I think let me look up something really quick here. I guess I thought we'd heard this later in later episodes, but I can't remember where. But here's the track. This clarinet theme here at the beginning we've heard since this episode. I really love that theme. I just really love when the French horn comes in. It really just adds a lot of emotion to it. As we get to the final track here, journal time. This is when Sweetie Belle is writing a journal entry for the CMC about what they've learned today in the main six's journal. We've heard this ending track lesson theme before this season at the beginning of Pinkie Apple Pie. In the track Genealogical Research. This is kind of a longer version of that, though, and the second half of it kind of subtly reprises the Passing the Test theme from the Crystal Empire Part 2, which also appeared in Princess Twilight Sparkle Part 2 as well. Yeah, that's the score for the episode. I really do enjoy the score at the end of the episode once you get to the more emotional parts there and the lesson part. That's still one of my more favorite tracks of the series. There is that one with the French horn there. So moving on. What does everyone think of the episode's theme and moral?
So the theme here is that when you're friends with somebody's special friend, and because you can get attention from others by telling everyone that you're their friend. Because doing that makes you a dick. Don't be a dick.
Yeah, but it's kind of about also don't take advantage of others' generosity and all that jazz there. Twilight, the real moral is Twilight Time is only for a select few.
The few, the elite. No.
So, favorite parts of the episode and any big concerns that anyone might have with it?
Apparently somebody tried to actually make real life horseshoe fries.
I guess you could if you had like the mold.
Yeah.
Huh.
I don't really have any particular favorite parts of the episode. Like I said, I hadn't really seen this in a while. I do kind of like how going back and looking at some of these in the background, the one where the Sweetie Belle levitates the flower up on top of Twilight's head is really cute.
Yeah, I think I guess kind of liked the sort of where this set up in terms of where we're going with the CMC in the future. It was nice sort of seeing them branching out and trying stuff they're interested in rather than having an episode focusing on them trying as much stuff as they want in order to try and get their cutie marks. Here they're just kind of trying, getting lessons from Twilight in terms of what they're interested in doing. Like Evelyn's interested in making potions, so Twilight's helping her learn that. It's not like Twilight's teaching her potion making, but Twilight's helping her like find the right books and assisting her in learning and teaching herself about it. And same with Sweetie Belle and Scootaloo as well. I mean, obviously Twilight isn't a big mechanic, but Twilight is helping Scootaloo learn that by helping her find the books, giving her the moral support and stuff. And none of them are really doing those things in terms of wanting to find their cutie mark. They're just trying to learn and from Twilight and having Twilight help them learn. And it was a nice kind of change of pace for Cutie Mark Crusader episodes, and I think it kind of set up future episodes from there. It was enjoyable, really enjoyable for me in that aspect, and I loved the payoff at the end, like getting to see them actually progress in what they're learning and seeing Apple Bloom, progress in her potion making, and especially Sweetie Belle progress in her magical ability, which of course is very much carried over to future episodes, like the Trouble Shoes episode in season 5, where we see her really using her magic a lot more to lift the keys out and stuff, and being very proud of herself for doing that. So it was a nice little setup in that regard for her character. Yeah, between the CMC and like Diamond Tiara, and it was just a very different kind of episode, and it was a good feeling for that. Overall feelings and final conclusions. Final thoughts from everyone.
Like Tim said, a lower key episode, but still a good one nevertheless.
Yeah, I'll echo what DM12 said there about the ending as well. I really did love that ending scene of the episode. Yeah, it was a good episode, and like I said, it set up for a lot of things in the future. And at the time, we didn't really know that, but looking back on the episode now, how many years later? 3 years later?
Yeah, over 3 years later. Yeah.
It's interesting to kind of see everything that this episode sort of set up and sort of for where the CMC would be going in future seasons there. Yeah, it was a good David Polsky job. Like Matt said, it wasn't kind of a wacky, over-the-top one like some David Polsky ones, but I think a lot of his ones this season have kind of deviated from that. Which other ones did he? Let me bring up the episode list here, because I know he did Made in Manhattan, which or not Made in Manhattan. Rarity Takes Manhattan this season, and of course that was the first key episode, and a lot of much more, but not very wacky episode, a little bit more serious and sort of story. Oh yeah, I forgot he also wrote Daring Don't this season. That was a fun episode. Rarity Takes Manhattan, and then Twilight Time, and then he wrote For Whom the Sweetie Belle Toils. I can't wait to get to that episode. That's another great Sweetie Belle episode. And then of course he also wrote Equestria Games near the end of the season. Again, For Whom the Sweetie Belle Toils. Again, a lot more very serious episode for it. So yeah, it's definitely a little change of pace from other more wacky episodes like Games Ponies Play or Too Many Pinkie Pies or Spike at Your Service, which is which were a little more kind of wacky episodes from season 3 that he wrote. And then feeling what else he's wrote? Feeling Pinky Keen, Over a Barrel. Did he not write anything for season 2? I guess he didn't. I didn't realize he didn't write for season 2. But yeah, so definitely a little bit different for him as a writer. But I mean, even like season 5, he wrote Brotherhood of Social and stuff. That was a pretty wacky, fun episode. Even if it did have a very strong, kind of emotional center core there. So. Oh, yep, of course he did Mere Magic. We do know that now, or co-wrote that, I guess. Well, with that, that'll bring us to the end of this episode of Equine Episode Examination here today. Gosh, we're getting really close. So thanks for joining us. We're getting really close to season 5 starting back up, or season 7 starting back up here. If you haven't heard the wonderful news, it will be starting back up on August 5th with another double episode, just like the season premiere was. Not a two-parter, but just 2 episodes that they'll be showing. That'll be Discordant Harmony and the Perfect Pair then, and then season 7 will continue to continue after that over the next few weeks in August there. So that's going to be an interesting week. We'll have to again do sort of what we did and have 2 episodes of Triple E that week in order to discuss both of those episodes. But before we get there, we do have one more week of Triple E before season 7 starts back up, and so we'll be ending this brief stint back into our episode flashbacks with the next episode of season 4, It Ain't Easy Being Breezy, written by second episode written by Natasha Levenger. So we'll be ending this next foray here into season 4 with that episode. We'll get back into season 7, and then I guess once season 7 is over, we'll get back into talking about season 4, because we still have a lot of great episodes to discuss in season 4. Maud Pie hasn't come up yet. For Whom the Sweetie Belle Toils hasn't come up yet. And of course the big Twilight's Kingdom 2-part finale we still have to discuss. So definitely gonna have to look forward to that coming after season 7's over. So one more episode next week, so make sure to join us next week for that, and then we'll be getting back into more new pony episodes not too long not too long after that. So thanks for joining us, everyone, this week for that, and we will see you again next Tuesday for episode number 98 of Equine Episode Examination. It Ain't Easy Being Breezy. So thanks for joining us, everyone. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.
Take care, folks.
See you.